So I'm Klaus Klipp. I chair Europa Union Frankfurt. We have a little office here in the building. Tom Leiser. And then we have Christian Ganz, Christoph Ganz, exactly, von Stäubenschutzgesellschaft. You are relatively new as a president, as far as I remember. Exactly. Yeah, okay. So we put that whole thing together. We don't want to give speeches here now. We just want to prepare you that we will have a discussion. Yeah, I know it's good that we don't speak. And then I suggest we have about maybe 1 hour moderated discussion. And after that, feel free asking questions, okay? And then after a while, we go into mingling, socializing, networking, something like that, all right? Claudia, if you want to join us. Claudia is our moderator. Claudia Böhnert. And maybe you take over now.
Okay, happy to. Thank you very much. And wow, I'm so impressed by this diverse crowd here. This is really impressive. Welcome. So glad you're all here. And I heard the youngest must be around 16 here and the oldest around 94. I mean, it can't be better than that. Welcome, welcome. And I was wondering, do I really have to speak English? Any Americans here? Any Americans? Ooh, okay, agreed. Seems there are some Americans here. Okay, perfect. Well, allow me a couple of words before we dig into the presentation. I will tell you what to expect this evening and how we want to proceed. When America votes, everybody is watching. You know that. Why? Because it's the effects of the election are so much bigger than just in America. It is an influence globally, it has an influence on Europe and of course on Germany. Geopolitically, economically, and of course the finance market. And we all know in the moment we have some difficult situations, the Ukrainian war, we have a conflict with Israel and Hamas, and we have increasing tensions between the US and China. All this is tied, of course, to the election and to the outcome. So we see the effect is enormous, but that's not it alone. Another aspect I like to mention quickly is we see that communication due to AI changed, like we can't go back. This is like majorly. You see and watch the election, what's going on right now. It is, it's just impressive. Look, when has it ever taken place that a sitting president really announced via X that he would retire? And not via the classic media. We have totally new media now. We have Musk communicating via X. We have Trump communicating via Truth Social. And we have influencers like, everybody knows her name, I'm not saying her name now. After the debate, she announced that she would vote for Kamala Harris. And she asked all the youngsters to really register for voting. And you wouldn't believe it. She has 272 million followers on Instagram and 35,000 people registered right after the debate. So if anybody thinks artificial intelligence and social media doesn't have an effect on the election, I can only say this is really highly naive. It is. The life changed. But okay, let's back to the discussion and what to expect tonight. Quickly, I will introduce to you now the panelists, two very experienced panelists. I feel very glad to have them.
Sorry, I forgot something because I was a bit nervous. We have a number of eminent guests here. I cannot call all of you, but there's Michael Gahler, who is a member of European Parliament, and he's rapporteur for Ukraine in the European Parliament since 2014. So, Michael, maybe you can just get up that people see you. And as you all know, behind that election, Ukraine is so important. So that's why I wanted to mention it, okay? And behind him is Fred, who will take the time to make sure we stick, Fred Liebner from our organization, to make sure that we stick to the time. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, what to expect this evening? We have some rules which I will explain to you, but first of all, I would like to introduce you to our panelists tonight, very experienced panelists. I feel very honored. I can moderate this discussion. Ladies first, there is Reavis Hilz-Ward. Reavis Hilz-Ward is a US citizen. Hello, Reavis. Yeah, welcome, Reavis Hilz-Ward. Was in the end, actually. Reavis Hilz-Ward is a U.S. citizen. She studied in Columbia and Johns Hopkins University. She's a Democrat by heart. That's what you told me, since you can think. You worked for the United Nations before moving to Germany, and now you're in Germany for 30 years. And here in Germany, you are a coach, you are a consultant. And there's one thing Reavis asked me to tell you all. As a representative of the Democrats in Germany, there's a long-term rule. She cannot really talk about foreign policy in each and every respect. So please, when you pose questions later on, you may want to, consider this. Reavis, please have a seat.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
And the representative, the defender of the Republicans, is Freund. Many of you may know him in Frankfurt. Freund is German citizen, but lived in the United States for many, many years. You studied in Stanford, in Mannheim University, in Darmstadt. You have your own consultancy in the fields of M&A. And you are a member of Steubenschutz, American German Business Club, AmCham. You're even in the board, okay, you're even the board. And Ralf, you've seen him probably in many talk shows, also Anne Will, Hart aber fair. And there's also something with the Republicans. Ralf can talk about anything in terms of strategy of the Republicans, but please, in terms of personalities, he is a bit restricted as well. We cannot talk that openly about personalities. I guess.
Right. I'm a bit hesitant regarding people because we are a Verein, and therefore we are allowed to submit and transport, U.S. values, U.S. Republican values, U.S. Republican policies, but not necessarily individual politicians like senators or even candidates. So I'm a bit hesitant in that, but I certainly will here and there, if it's in line, I will try to answer your questions as well.
Thank you. So please help me welcome the two. So before we dig into the questions, maybe briefly the debate, how we want to run it. We actually wanted to be close to how the presidential debate was run, but we tweaked it a slightly bit to make it more interesting for you. So we're going to have the debate at first, and afterwards the discussion is open for questions for you. We plan the debate to be for 1 hour. I prepared 4 questions in the most relevant topic areas now in the US, and each of them I will pose a question, and they have 2 minutes to answer. And I was asked to be very rigid on it because there's a reason, and that's important. We could talk about every topic for an hour. You know that, right? But we try to avoid it. We want to give you a broad perspective on the topics. Therefore, you have to be rigid. Once the candidates answered the questions, each of them will have the opportunity to ask the other one a question, and then the other person can answer for 1 minute. Also very rigid. By the way, where's my help? Where's my timer? Could you please come? You can? Okay, perfect. Just make sure. We are very rigid with the timing. Yeah, I thought you lift the flag or something. Perfect. All right, so here's our timer, and we make sure. And this is how we proceed with all the 4 questions, yeah? And then afterwards, I have 2 questions on the personalities of the current candidates, and then the discussion is open for you. That's actually it for now. Thank you very much for your patience, and I think we can start. Let's rumble. All right. I need a little help here. So, the first question, you two, have you a question to me? Okay. Is on migration. And migration has remained one of the most challenging issues for both Republicans and Democrats in the United States. The US is facing continued pressure from immigration, with pressure fleeing economic instability, people from Mexico, from Venezuela, and particularly entering the United States. Just recently, a bipartisan immigration reform bill failed to pass in Congress. So Ralph, you as a Republican, what are the key challenges the US is facing in terms of immigration, and how does your party propose to address them in the election?
Well, the overall picture is that this is a problem for many, many years, for a couple of decades. Remember when I was there studying over there in the Reagan-Bush era, it was already a problem, and Congress didn't react. And it took a while, and then it became a big issue for many years, not just in this campaign, but also like in the election years and terms before. And what makes it so sad is that you had to carry the Democrats, finally, that they understand that there's a problem. There was no awareness of a problem, all right? Now, finally, there is an awareness because people are complaining throughout the country. And you have to be tough on illegal migration, and you have a system where you allow migration, but illegal immigration is a big problem. And I believe it's coming to an end now, finally, after many years, that it needs to get controlled, and we need not just legal control, we need also more security at the southern border. And this awareness, I'm happy that also the Democrats now have the awareness that there is an issue we have to talk about, and they were kind of softish. I think you got to be more strict. You've mentioned that the bill didn't pass. I think it's a little late after like 10, 20 years that the bill finally didn't get passed. Let's do it in the new Congress. Let's do it maybe even together. But I think just right now, before the election, that's not the right time to do it.
Okay, you're done already. Reavis, what is your opinion from the Democrats? How do you see this issue, and how are you going to solve it?
Let me just say I'm delighted that Ralph recognizes that the Democrats have made big efforts in this area and have done a lot to begin to resolve the issue. The immigration system in the United States has been broken for many years, and that is largely due to Republican resistance for giving enough money to make the thing work and to solve the problems. But this administration has done a great deal. It is way more complex than just saying, oh, we close the border. It's about figuring out the root causes and trying to address them in the places where it happens. It is about finding ways to have a good working immigration system in the United States so that people can come in and take jobs because we need them for our economy. But it's also about, and this administration has managed to do it, things like setting up an app so that you can apply for an interview at a port of call, and changing the risk calculus of those people who would either try to enter illegally or those people who are smuggling people in. This administration has managed to do it, the Biden-Harris administration, without any support from the Republicans. Then in January, nearly a year ago, one of the most conservative Republican members of the Senate started negotiating with the Democrats a new bill. This bill contains virtually everything the Republicans have been requesting. What happened in June? Trump killed it because he wanted to be able to campaign on this. What kind of America first is that? That's Trump first. Hello?
Ralph, I know it's very intriguing to write answer away, but maybe it's your time now to ask a question to Reavis, and you can incorporate maybe your concerns, what you wanted to say in your question.
Talking about jobs, I mean, illegal immigration does not solve, necessary jobs.
Is that a question?
My question is...
Ralph, please, stick
Okay.
to the rules. I know it's intriguing.
My question is, how come that the Democrats coming up now with a bill, and we were trying to carry them for years and years for stricter immigration rules. You know it as well as I do. You were kind of softish on that topic, and finally, if it comes close now to an election, you seem to have the right ideas, but that bill should have been passed many years ago. Don't you agree?
You can
Yes,
answer
if you guys had authorized the funding. Okay, may I ask my question?
If that was your answer already, yeah, you can ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Ralph, what response do you have to the business and factory owner who, after the proposed mass deportation of millions and millions of immigrants in the United States, loses up to 2/3 of their workforce, and due to tight labor conditions in the United States can't hire American-born replacements, and therefore has to close his factory? What is your answer to that person?
Pretty easy. First of all, illegal immigration is it's not the solution to a tough labor market. Okay, we want, as you mentioned it, we need legal ways to get people into the country. They have to queue up instead of sneaking through the border. I mean, this is not a solution. I mean, you have to separate between the necessity of like a tight labor market where you need qualified people and those who aren't qualified and would not get into the country. This is not mass immigration is not a solution to a tough labor market. Same thing in Europe. We have the discussion just yesterday. We've seen the elections in Brandenburg and we see what happened here in Germany. Same in the US. Let us do the things like legally, not illegally.
Okay, thank you very much. That was the first question on migration. I'm sure you have a lot of questions on your side. Keep them in mind for later on when we open the discussion. And now we move on to the second question, which is women's rights. Women's rights, particularly regarding reproductive health care and workplace equality, have become major topics right now in the current election. After more than 50 years of legal abortion in the US, the Supreme Court recent decision overturned the long-standing Roe v. Wade ruling, leaving it to individual states to regulate abortion. As a result, we now see widely disparate approaches across the country, with some states imposing near-total bans and others maintaining more permissive laws. Reavis, from the democratic perspective, what steps should the next administration take to safeguard and advance women's rights in the US?
Thank you, a very good question. I think first I have to say that we are now at the state that women are dying in the United States due to Roe v. Wade being thrown out by the Trump Supreme Court because they don't get health care from their hospitals, from their doctors that they need. Throwing it to the states is a catastrophe. So of course the first thing that we have to do is find a way to put Roe v. Wade in law. And as you all pretty well know, in all the states where it has been put on the ballot up till now, abortion rights, the right for reproductive health care not being taken over by the government, have been supported by voters in red or blue states. But that's not enough. I just want you to know that the Republicans have this Project 2025 you may have heard of. And the plan is not only to outlaw abortion everywhere, but to use the Comstock Act, which was passed in the beginning of the 20th century, to avoid interstate transport of anything having to do with abortion or contraception. So we are looking at the Republicans trying to outlaw even contraception. You know, the Republican Party, when I was growing up in the United States, was a party of small government. Keep government out of my affairs. And now they want to go in and they want to tell us who we can love, how we can love, what I can decide over my own body, what I can read, and so on and so forth. And I think this has nothing to do with the values that I recognized in Republicans when I was a kid. So we've got to go back to supporting individual rights in order to have an egalitarian society. Thank you.
Okay. Ralph, how do Republicans view the issue, particularly in terms of balancing states' rights and protecting individual freedom?
A couple of things, first of all. There were some misunderstanding statements from her. First of all, the Supreme Court, there were 3 judges nominated by the Trump administration. There was only 1 turnover from a former Democratic announced judge to a Republican. 1 person flipped. That's not a overruling by the Republicans. Please. Second story. The Project 2025 is not, and this is important, is not a part of the U.S. Republican program. I want to emphasize this. This is a side program, and it's not what we support, also not here in Germany, second of all. Third, talking about abortion. That is absolutely my topic. We had Roe against Wade, and you could have abortion until the 22nd week. In Europe, we have the same story currently as we already have in the United States. We have like very strict laws in Poland, for instance. It goes all the way up 20 weeks in Netherlands, 21 in Portugal, even 22 in the UK. The German Ethical Committee, the Deutsche Ethikrat, tells us after the 12th week, in their understanding, it's a killing of life. And I support this. I think a 12-week period is like what is acceptable. Roe against Wade, 22 weeks is absolutely unacceptable in my understanding. And I'm surprised this is in your favor, okay? And within Europe, we have like many countries with different periods, and it works absolutely well, and we do not have to go back 22 weeks for the whole country. Let the single states decide as we do in Europe, and we can live very well with it, in my understanding.
Okay. I know, Reavis, is intriguing now to answer right away, but maybe you want to pose your question and incorporate your thoughts in your question.
Ralph, please explain to me how you can reconcile this Republican self-image pro-life with a party with the refusal to extend the child tax credit, which brought almost half of the American children living in poverty out of poverty in 1 year before the Republicans killed it, or to support meaningful child care legislation, or all the efforts to get rid of the Affordable Care Act and throw people off insurance rolls, or the refusal to even consider sensible gun regulations such as background checks and red flag laws. How does that go together? What is pro-life about that? And then to add my thought, what is pro-life about refusing a woman who has a pregnancy complication that is only found out in the 22nd week an abortion?
Well, you can have, if you have a medical indication, the 22nd week, that's fine. But like in general, 22 weeks, is that really what you're proposing? 22 weeks for everybody? Is that what you're proposing?
That's his question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is this what you're proposing?
Answer first to my question.
Yes, yes, you get a couple of answers. We're talking about, all the gun laws. I'm not too pleased with it, but according to the U.S. Constitution and the amendment, that's a big topic. As you know, that's a big topic. You got to change, in my understanding. You have to change. I mean, you can have tougher gun laws, and you can have more background checks. So far, so good. But in general, to basically not guarantee the right for somebody who wants to purchase guns, I believe you need a change of the Constitution, which is under the current political situation almost impossible. I call it a bit naive, and that's a topic which every administration more or less tried to change in one or the other direction, and nothing ever happened, as you know as well. All right.
Okay. And is the 22 weeks still your question to Reavis? Yeah.
That's very easy to answer, Ralph. As a woman who has carried 2 pregnancies full term, I can tell you that nobody waits voluntarily until the 22nd week to get an abortion unless they have a medical condition. But right now, what is happening in places like Georgia is you have women who are dying at way less than 22 weeks because the doctors are afraid of the government going into our private health decisions and refusing care to women who need it. This is not okay.
Okay, dynamic discussion. Keep your questions for later, please. Thank you. And we move on to the, well done, guys. We move on to the third question, and it is about economy. Bill Clinton once famously said, "Is the economy stupid?" And not a lot seems to have changed since then. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, the most pressing issues in the moment in the United States are by far inflation and pricing. This is slide end, and with a big of, later on it's inflation, and it's also job security. Of course, for us in Europe and in Germany, it's slightly different. If we think about the US economy, we are more interested in what's going to happen. Will there be any tax and how do you say rates for got my English, excuse me. Thank you very much. Tariffs. And that's more interesting for us. So, Ralph, question to you. What does the Republicans intend to do, and how do they want to strengthen the economy by not alienating their partners abroad?
Well, a couple of things. Domestically, we're talking about potentially rate cuts in the tariff and tax rates. That's one thing, going down corporate tax rate from 21, it's discussed being down to 18%. Then also the Republicans are supply-siders. What does that mean? Well, they want to widen the supply, also talking about energy. They will not oppose the Green Deal, which they, by the way, supported. I want to mention that. They want also like new energy and fossil energy. They want it both together, as we did in Germany as well. During now the natural gas cut from Russia, as we did as well in Germany. He wants to at least widen that. Then next point is he wants to be and the Republicans want to be tough on their partners, because comparing, like, the EU is exporting goods and services to the US. It depends how you calculate this, but you pay about 3.5%. The tariff is 3.5%. The US pays within Europe between 5 and 6%. So we're talking about 60–80% more. This is like a problem for many, many years, many administrations, and it's always been discussed. And the Trump administration is pretty tough on that and said, listen, if you're not moving yourself, especially Germany's benefiting from this, and we are all benefiting from this, we need equal tariffs. That's also a big issue, which you need to do. So I think you can cut down inflation by more supply, and we're supply-siders. You strengthen the economy, like lower corporate rates, fair trade. That's a big issue, and also, and that's that's the big thing, like, bureaucracy. For every, the statement from Trump, for every new law, we need 2 laws to get cut out.
Okay, thank you, Ralph, very much. And Reavis, how do the Democrats tend to tackle the situation?
I'm delighted to hear that the Republicans support a Green New Deal, and I'm delighted to hear that the Republicans are interested in well, I don't know what else. But what I can say is that, Trump's idea of 20% tariffs across the board, which is quite a 19th century concept, has also, together with his idea of deporting millions of migrants, whether legal or illegal, doesn't really matter, and weakening the US dollar and the Fed are all considered by serious economists to be a recipe for hyperinflation and huge debt, let alone tax reduction, supply side. Just ask Kansas how well supply side has worked for them. I can tell you in the break. The Democrats, on the other hand, have already done a great deal. The Fed has confirmed last week that we have inflation under control. It's down to just above 2%, as witnessed by the Fed's reduction of the interest rate by 5 points, which is massive. But also, I just want to talk a little bit about something like unemployment. In Nevada, at the last year of the Trump administration, 2020, they had a 30% unemployment rate. That's down to 5.7%. With all of the different acts, the American Rescue Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science, the Biden-Harris administration has brought a lot of jobs back, manufacturing jobs that were lost during the Trump administration, back to the United States. And as I said, inflation is cooling off, and I just want to warn my friend Ralph, the last president who presided over significantly dropping consumer prices was a fellow named Herbert Hoover. You may want to find out how that went.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Ralph, I'm sure you have a strong question now to Reavis, right?
Strong question. As it is, okay, I have to. I would rather go for a statement, but I'm like urged
Can
to,
you
to
incorporate
make a
the
question.
statement in your question?
Absolutely, I do so. Now, the biggest black box is the, like what is the economical outlook under a Harris administration? We don't know where she's tending to. I don't see the competence. Now, my question is in here. What is she? Is she more supply-sider? Is she more somebody who goes for social programs? And you mentioned a couple of healthcare issues where, where the Social Security system has to carry a lot of costs. What is really the economical agenda in 2 words? To be honest, I'm an economist. I have not understood. I've read it carefully. I'm not saying everything is wrong. I'm just, in my understanding, I don't see there a consistent line. Could you please open my eyes? Thank you.
I'll do the best I can.
With your question,
But
thank you,
I have to
Reavis.
ask my question.
Yes,
But I can first answer his?
you can incorporate the answer maybe. I know it's always intriguing to answer. Okay, Reavis, go ahead.
Okay.
Can we be flexible, but not more time. You asked me to do that, yeah.
Because, basically, if you go to the site of Kamala Harris for president, there are pages of economic plans, and they range from things like reinstating the child tax credit, okay, that's social, to supporting small businesses, to working on the housing sector so that you can reduce regulation and create more housing and support first-time housing owners, and so on and so forth. Supply-side tax, don't get me started, I'll go over the time. But Ralph, my question to you is, what are the 2 most important economic plans for a new Trump administration for strengthening the economy at large and supporting struggling Americans?
Okay, I think the best support for struggling Americans are jobs, 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 and not subsidies. In my understanding, you have to strengthen the economy with their own forces and not from any administration, as you should know. A potential Republican administration would rather go tough on unfair trade, where goods and services are getting subsidized by most of them from China, but also sometimes from European nations, and that we have to talk about subsidies, and we really have to talk about fair trade. That's a big issue, and I don't see the Democrats. They have single points, as you mentioned, startups and people here and there. I don't see the big picture, and that is really a lack of the Harris campaign. We don't know what we get. I'm not saying everything is wrong. There is no agenda. I don't see a consistent economical plan. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. I know we could continue for another hour. Please, again, keep your questions, and we move on to the last question, which is on foreign policy, which many of you may interest the most. I mean, we're living in tough times in the moment. We have, like I mentioned earlier already, the war in the Ukraine. We have further tensions with Israel and Hamas. We have an increasing tensions also between America and China. NATO alliances and relationship with key partners are being tested, while the role of the US as a global leader is increasingly debated. As the US redefines its position on the world stage, the next administration will face significant choices about how to navigate these complex challenges. Ralph, from the Republican perspective, what should the US role be in addressing these global crises, and how would your party ensure national security while maintaining global leadership?
All right, I'm supposed to answer this within the next 120 seconds. Oh my goodness.
I give you 2 minutes.
All right, let's draw the big picture. Talking about NATO budget, just want to give you an understanding. No matter, it depends how you count this and calculate this, but out of the NATO budget, the US is about contributing between 60 and 70%, and we have 32 countries, and the rest 31 countries are contributing, each of them average speaking, of course, 1%. Latvia less, of course, than Germany. But this is the whole problem. So the contribution to international, defense and security is being paid by the US. And I understand perfectly that this, if people are not like standing to their, promises, and if they don't fulfill their contributions, we have a problem. The US will be a partner to Ukraine if the Europeans really do fulfill their part as well. The US will also be tough on China, but they cannot do everything by themselves. And this is a big issue. And supporting also Israel. I mean, Trump said, let Israel do the job. I mean, we have in Near East a huge problem currently. And we all for freedom, we all want to stop the war. It's just the same thing in Ukraine. Maybe it needs a big player more than currently the US is playing. Not just supporting Ukraine with weapons, but maybe also sitting together with the war parties on one table. Same story about the Near East. It's all a matter of who is supporting also the U.S. and not just U.S. is supporting NATO and the whole system. This is the current. This is my understanding of the responsibility of the United States towards the world, let's say, security.
Okay, thank you very much, Ralph. Reavis, how would the Democrats approach the same challenge?
I think something that I can say without commenting on foreign affairs is that the Biden-Harris administration has spent a great deal of effort re-linking with our allies and our partners after all the damage caused by the Trump administration. And the US coordinates and cooperates with our partners to figure out the best way forward. And we do it in a mutual and with a good mutual understanding. And I personally find it a bit frightening to think about a Donald Trump coming back into office and just throwing all the good work of the last 3.5 years out the window. Do I get a credit on time for my question?
Your question too.
Oh, I get to do my question.
No,
first.
you get a question now.
All right, there's no time limit on questions. All right, I don't know. I'm only allowed to go for one question, correct?
Right.
Would like to have a couple of them. After the debate.
Yeah, later on at the bar.
I not objecting the current the international approach or the politics of the current administration. I just believe they could have done a little better job. They could have positioned them a bit more in the Ukraine, in my understanding. They're a bit hesitant currently with certain weapons. They're a bit hesitant in the Near East. So basically, my question is, I don't want to get in trouble with you. My question is, why is the current administration a bit hesitant? Either you want to support Ukraine, then do it more. I know you're the greatest supporter, but still, you could do more regarding certain weapons. And same story in the Near East. I don't see that either you step out, you do nothing, or you do more. Why are you like a little bit in between, and I don't know really where it's leading to?
Quite honestly, Ralph, what I can say about that is there's so much going on in the background that neither you nor I know anything about, that I don't really feel I can comment on it in this audience.
Makes sense.
I apologize for
Yeah,
that.
you mentioned it earlier, right? You can't.
Yeah. But I do have a question.
Good. Perfect.
Ralph, given Trump's open admiration for dictators and his disdain for our partners, how do you see NATO and our Pacific partnerships developing under a new Trump administration?
America first doesn't imply America alone. America cannot, as I've mentioned before, cannot be responsible for the whole globe. And I believe Trump is, more or less urging the partners to make their contributions. And if they do so, I think we get aligned with our partners. I don't see NATO getting damaged in Europe under a Trump administration. I understand that the US does not want to contribute for the next 10, 20, 30 years, 60, 70% of NATO budget. There's an imbalance, and that has to be corrected at some point.
Okay, thank you very much. 4 questions, and looking into your question. I have 2 last questions now, thought-provoking questions, more on the personality and the characters. And both of you can answer, or if you don't want to, you don't need to. So we now have a different kind of format for the last 2 questions now. The first is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris has been vice president under Joe Biden for almost 4 years, playing a significant role in shaping the administration's policies. Now she's positioning herself for the future-forward approach. Given her close involvement in the current administration, some have questioned whether she can credibly distance herself from its policies while advocating for change. How do you view the transition in this leadership? Whoever likes to answer.
She's my lady, yeah. How do I have a minute or 2?
You can take 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Right? This is a.
My first answer to this is, as we've already seen, it's a generation change. And Kamala is a very loyal vice president and has supported President Biden very, very well over the last 3.5 years. And she's her own person, as we've seen, and she's come into her own in this campaign. And so she's already ushered in quite some change. And what I'm looking forward to is she will build on the successes, but she's capable of learning from things that didn't go so well. So she will bring in a whole new dimension. And, we were talking before this about her character, and character is important. And I have here, I won't read you the whole thing, but I'll read you a couple of excerpts from a letter. I think it's important to state here that over 700 Republicans from the last 4 Republican administrations have come out publicly and signed letters supporting Kamala Harris and saying that Donald Trump is not fit or suited to be our commander-in-chief and our president. So I just say, we believe that the President of the United States must be a principled, serious, and steady leader who can advance and defend American security and values, strengthen our alliances, and protect our democracy. We expect to disagree with Kamala Harris on many domestic and foreign policy issues, but we believe that she possesses the essential qualities to serve as president, and Donald Trump does not. And then they add, Donald Trump's demonstrated chaotic and unethical behavior and disregard for our public's time-tested principles of constitutional governance, quote unquote, disqualify him. I leave the word of the Republicans for mine.
Okay, thank you. Your turn, 2 minutes, Ralph.
Same question?
Yes, if you like to, but you don't need to.
Don't need to. I make it pretty simple. People grow with their responsibilities, of course, and you mentioned that she's loyal. I don't know any vice president who was illoyal in the past Republican or Democratic administrations. She lost, when she was campaigning for president, she lost like heavily, had like 2, 3, 4%, and she was not very, very popular. Now she is popular because probably the situation is different than 4 years ago, of course. But I don't see Kamala Harris, can always happen, but I don't see her currently in a circle with leaders in the Western world at this time of the day. She did not in the past. She was responsible for like dealing with southern countries, like American countries, not U.S. American countries, but countries in America at the southern border, and she had talks with them. Back then, she did not, in my understanding, put herself in place and showed like international leadership. But can always happen. But on the other hand, I see Trump as a strong person, as a strong character. He's not your president, I perfectly understand, but he's a heavyweighter. This is my understanding. He is. Politically, he definitely is more than Kamala Harris. I mean that's for sure. That's for sure in my understanding.
Blue sector, please.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, all right. And I see Trump has a certain authority when you talk to him. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, history will prove that. At this time of the day, Kamala Harris still has to show us her international leadership, at least.
Okay. Ralph, Reavis, thank you very much. It's the last question now, of course, on the other side. Donald Trump has made bold claims during the campaign, stated that on the first day as president, he would be able to end the war in Ukraine and resolve the conflict between Israel and Gaza. These are deeply complex, long-standing conflicts with significant geopolitical implication. While some view these statements as ambitious, others have raised concerns. How would you...
There's no answer to it. He got asked by a CNN correspondent, and he answered, "I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to give you the answer. I'll keep this until I'm elected." I cannot. That was his answer. I cannot speculate on that. I don't know. I think he put the not the diplomatic way, but also the military importance of the United States. He would throw into the game and tell the war parties in the Near East and probably in the Ukraine that the U.S. could possibly, step into the war, and that it will lead to a certain agreement. I wouldn't even call it freedom, but call it to an agreement. I think that's his way of basically ending the war. I mean, Trump was pretty successful in not stepping into wars in his administration. Was pretty successful, to end wars in his administration. So this is like a track record which Kamala Harris does not have, obviously, because she was not in power in the current administration in order to stop any wars. So at least he has a proven track record regarding this issue.
Okay. Reavis, you would want to answer?
Absolutely. Because I'm afraid, Ralph, we have a little bit of a confusion here, confusing bluster for strength. Strength comes through sovereignty. Strength comes through being able to deal with people. And I refer you to the debate, the recent debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and I ask you, who was more sovereign? Kamala Harris, for the last 3.5 years, has been dealing with international leaders. She has been negotiating with people. She's done a whole lot of work, lots behind the scenes that we don't see, but that we hear about when it's successful. And my point is, this is a woman who brings credibility, strength to her work. And I mean, I'm sorry, we are talking here about voting for a prosecutor as opposed to voting for a felon. I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Ralph and Reavis. I mean, my highest respect. You did a great job. I think, right? They really did a great job. Maybe. Thank you so much. Now we open up the discussion to the broader area. Whoever, is anybody there? Tom or something who can help with the micros? Yeah, thank you very much. That's kind. Here is the first question here already. I passed on. Here you have another one.
Yeah. No, they need one.
We got to yell, though.
Good idea.
As far as I know, my friend Ralph is not an American citizen.
That's correct.
Right.
So my question is, why does the Republican Party have a German as its spokesman in Germany?
Well. To be honest, it was a bit. It's nice. I don't know how much time we have. I make it quick. I got asked back then because I'm also Steuerberater. Why don't you do administrational work? And that was like 14 years ago, 13 years ago. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do the admin job, but okay, Tom Leiser back then. I do not have any, let's say, political ambition. Okay, let's put it this way. All right, Tom. No problem. You just do like back office work. It's like fine. And then all of a sudden, we had some media attention, and German media approached us, and because I was more fluent, of course, in German than he is, even though he lives for a very, very long time in Germany, I got asked, and I was so nervous. And then I grew with my responsibility, and then made it like through the media, and then it was let's say a career which wasn't planned at all, and that's how come I grew into my role. I think that's the answer to it.
Yeah, there's one right there.
Hi, Amy Curley, Frankfurt Rhein-Main GmbH. I'm responsible for investment attraction of American companies to the Frankfurt Rhein-Main region. And I'm an American voter, but an absentee voter in California, so my vote actually effectively won't matter either way. But my question to you would be, what policies do you foresee each of your candidates implementing that would directly positively impact the German economy, the transatlantic relationship, and the tax-paying citizens of the Frankfurt Rhein-Main region?
Beauty before age. Okay. Well, for one, I can say some of the things that won't be implemented, and that's like 20% across-the-board tariffs. But also, Kamala Harris has already said that she is going to support new businesses and support also supply chains. And one of the most important thing is the world is so interconnected. You're here to support American and German companies working together. And this is the kind of thing that she is working to support and to, bring along. And she is looking at the entirety of the U.S. economy and trying to also, the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act do not exclude German investors in the United States, for example, from working to make these productions. So everything that they are doing on these different policy levels is actually leading to an improved economic exchange. That's about what I can say.
Okay. All right. Next question, ma'am.
Okay. My question has to do with gun control and pro-life. I'm a little bit confused. We're very concerned about not having abortions. And then we have the children, we send them to school, and they get killed at school. This thing about the right to bear arms was made in a time when you had muskets. You filled it up, took 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe it shot. It wasn't an AKA. So my question is, why do we keep having this concept that Democrats are trying to take away your guns, but we can take away a gun that can kill 30 young kids in 2 minutes? Somebody clear that up for me, please.
You're probably talking to the wrong person. I absolutely agree with you, and I think we need stricter gun laws. But that I'm here sitting to represent the U.S. Republican, program, and personally myself, I think we need way stricter gun laws. I just want to mention a story like many years ago when Biden was vice president, Obama was president, and they were talking about a U.S. Democratic crowd in the South. And they were all absolutely objecting tougher gun laws, and then they've mentioned, well, you can still purchase a Schrotflinte. Honestly, that really Biden answered this. We don't want to take away your guns. You still can protect yourself with other ways of, with other guns. I'm just telling you, this is not just a Republican problem case where like people want to be liberal on gun laws. It's just also like in the South, also the Democrats support the same idea. In my understanding, you're absolutely right. It doesn't match with pro-life. I think in the long run, we need more control on especially like mass killing weapons like electronic guns and all that.
Okay, great. We have 3 more questions, and then you know that you can stay here. We can talk at the bar. So you and then.
Okay. I would still like to respond to that question. This is important to me. Okay, so my response is the following. As a kid growing up in California, we had 3 kinds of drills that we practice as students for emergencies that could kill you. One was fire. I think we have that here too. The second, California, was earthquake. We live on a fault zone. And the third was nuclear. So by the 70s, the nuclear threat had diminished due to contracts, salt and everything. Thank you. And now it breaks my heart to hear that kids have to do shooter drills. And this, I'm sorry, I have to lay at the feet of the Republicans who consistently block just normal checks. We're not talking about taking away weapons, though 95% of voters, including 91% of Trump voters, actually favor background checks and red flag laws, But since the Republican Party seem to be in the pocket of the NRA, which is just a weapons supporter, nothing happens. So I'm sorry, I just had to say that.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
I would like to know, as an American, this question is directed to the Republicans that are in here and in hiding. Let me stand up so you can see me.
I'm wondering.
Don't worry, Ralph. I'm looking for my friend Tom Leiser. My question is, as an American who's lived in Europe many, many years since the 80s, and the people in my neighborhood, they know me, a lot of Germans, and they call me Miss Obama.
Okay.
Now, why do they call me that? Because during the during that time, I had Obama stickers on my car. Okay, so this is how they refer to me. Even today, when I was down on the Goethestrasse, I went to an orthopedic doctor, and I was questioned. Always, he wants to debate about Americans and Donald Trump. My question is this: when you mention scruples and all of that, he has none. Let's be realistic. He doesn't have any. Any person that run for president of the United States, as long as I've been in the United States, this is the first time in my life I've been embarrassed to be an American citizen when I'm approached every day when they're asking me, how can the other Republicans, how can the other Americans dare vote for a man who has no scruples and talking about they stealing, they eating the chickens? Okay, they're eating the chickens, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the chickens, and they doing all of that. So, and not only that, we're talking about Tom Leiser. I know you're hiding back there. I asked you years ago, how can you dare vote for someone who the same person was talking about grabbing a woman by the same cats and dogs that he was talking about people eating? Scruples he has none. That's what I wanted to say.
I'm not debating. Even if it's against my satsang of my Republican fine, I'm not supposed to comment on individual politicians, but I want to answer. I'll give you an answer. I just had at NTV. I'm just giving an interview last week, and I said I want less menu cards for immigrants and rather more content in politics. So basically, that is supportive to your thoughts, and it's not. Well, it's supportive. So yeah. So basically, I understand that you're upset, and I'm probably. Believe me, I think it's awkward what he was telling us. All right. Tom, do you want to say anything? No, he doesn't want to say anything.
Eins.
Here we have some questions for the young people.
Yeah, my simple question is, why to hell is this Wahlkampf so dirty and fake, and how can you change that to normal terms? Klaus, bring it back. Can you bring the mic back, please? Thank you, sir. Why are you leaving with the mic? Make no sense.
Well, I can give you a non-political answer. The whole debate in general is getting tougher. Social media is taking place. You're like, before it was all only on television. Now it's social media. It's like you can post your comments and thoughts more direct. The political situation of each country, as the U.S., as the Germans, for instance, is not taking any influence on U.S. politics. I think each country is pretty restricted and should not intervene into the domestic politics.
The nice thing about civil debate is that you can actually say, I agree.
Wonderful. What a nice word to finish. Is it answered?
His question was, what would we do against AfD? What is your answer to that?
I cannot comment about what Democratic Party in the United States would do about different parties in Germany. All I know is that the Democrats stand for certain values which have to do with respect for human life, with respect for people, with trying to bring up populations. And so Democrats will work with people who also stand for those values.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Reavis and Wolf. You were a great audience. Thank you so much also to you. The two will stay here, have a drink together at the bar, and see you soon.